A lot of people just end up quitting or
Hmm.
moving on to a different job because it is very taxing on not only your soul, but it costs money to be an actor and a
Yes.
model. It's not, you have to invest in yourself. It's a business.
Thank you.
And you
Thank
have to
you.
have a startup money fund that is possibly coming from somewhere else. A lot of people end up living in their car. A lot of people do background work for a living because in the union, it's 350 a day,
Hmm.
$350 a day, and they just do it every day and save up, and then you get an agent, a publicist. There's all these things that come into play that you just don't foresee.
Hmm.
Well, you have to, I mean, you really have to be a multitasker, but you also have to have multiple streams of income to keep your career going. I found that just
Yes.
later in life, obviously, being a model into my 40s, I was like, this is so taxing because you have to, of course, not take the jobs where they basically want you to sell your soul, and you can give up on a lot of really great jobs and great opportunities because a lot of women are willing to do that. A lot of women are willing to, sell those parts of themselves that, somebody with morals and a high ground is not willing to do. So you're like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm going to have multiple streams of income to keep my career going and to be able to be choosy and to be able to pick projects and things that are going to keep me in the light and keep me in a place where I can still go to bed at night and I can still look at myself in the mirror at night. And that's what's so scary and hard, especially with Hollywood. And, I'm like you, whereas, even when I was younger, I was like, oh, they'll fly you to New York and they'll fly you to these places, but you need to be 100 pounds and you need to like, sleep with this photographer. And I'm like, yeah, I like to eat. I'm like there's no way, and I'm never going to sleep with somebody to get to a point where I know I can get there anyway. I know I can do it with hard work. I know I can like dig in and put my heels in and really work for it. And that's why it takes so long. And a lot of people go, "Oh, well, it took you a long time to get here, or it took you a long time to get there." And you've got a great list of accolades for your movies and your TVs. And I'm like, looking at it right now, and it's so exciting, but you see how much work it takes and how
Hmm.
hard you have to really dig in because you have to do it the real way. You have to do the legit way. And that is a lot harder than people think,
Hmm.
without selling your soul and with really, holding on to your moral compass and realizing your value. It takes a lot longer. It takes a tax on your life, but it also takes a lot longer to get to these things where people are like, "Oh, you're already in. You should be getting movies every day." You're like, it doesn't work like that.
So, Caitlin,
It doesn't.
when you came from Pittsburgh, what would you say for yourself when you arrived in LA and just in your journey itself? And we'll break it down into parts. First, the modeling, then the hosting, then the acting. What would you say your biggest challenge was first when you arrived in LA, just stepping in there into a new city, and then second, what would you say in regards to your biggest challenge first as a model?
Oh gosh, when I got back to LA, I really always felt like LA was my home, but I was raised by my grandparents, so I was really excited to be back in Los Angeles, not knowing all of the trials and tribulations that would await me. I was just very naive. But my first job was as the catalog model at UCLA. I went to their open call. I saw it like on the Bruin whatever posting board, and I went
Okay.
for it. And they picked me. I was their catalog girl for the whole year, and that was my first job. And then I worked at Disneyland as Sleeping Beauty. And so I think that was my biggest challenge was getting over my stage fright, getting over I wasn't able to be in a room of more than three people without instant sweat and anxiety. And a lot of actors have that, but when you're trying to, you just have to get out of your shell.
Hmm.
And it was very hard for me. It took a long time, many years.
So, like, obviously you've been balancing between the modeling and acting. What did you find the harder medium between the two, the modeling or the acting?
Modeling is its own career, its own sport, and that came very naturally to me, very easy to me. I don't know if that was just something innate, but I really
Hmm.
enjoy modeling. I enjoy creating photos, knowing my angles, helping a company get the right pictures and the right content. That's a passion of mine. And I've realized that over time, modeling has always come really easy to me. And it's not all just looking good. You have to show up on time. You have to be prepared. You have to have your hair and makeup done properly if they're not doing it for you. You have to have, you have to keep yourself in shape. There's a lot that goes into it that people just think, oh, you show up and you're hot. And
Hmm.
that's not the case. You can't show up hungover
No.
from the night before. You have to keep up everything. It costs a lot of money to look beautiful,
Hmm.
especially in today's
We
age.
actually
I
got
know.
into this conversation before, and this is one of my biggest things about models with longevity is showing up with hair done, nails done, good skin, shaved. You'd be surprised at how many women show up to a set and you're shooting bikinis and they're not shaved, and you're like,
Yeah. People
what?
actually
What?
seriously fucking do that?
Oh my gosh, so often you'd be shocked. But it really is sad because you will see these women who will, take a job for, way underbid all of us, that have been doing it for a long time, and they'll just show up how they show up. They don't care if their, eyebrows are crazy and they don't have makeup on and their hair is a mess, and they've got bad extensions, and it really is a craft in itself just to be ready and just to show up like your picture. And
Hmm.
that alone is like a huge accolade for like a real model, because you can look at pictures all day long on Instagram, and you can look
Hmm.
at pictures all day long in someone's book. I'm like old school. I still have my modeling book and my modeling Z cards. This is old
Hmm.
Me
school.
too.
I think that Caitlin and are pretty close in age. And it's crazy because so many of these women get away with just
Yep.
being their filtered self, and then you
Yep.
meet them and you're like shocked because this is not the person
Hmm.
you've seen and talked to on Instagram or wherever they, maybe portraying their career. And it's such
Yeah.
a huge accolade to a model to be that person who's punctual, who shows up looking exactly like their pictures, who shows up with their hair done, with their makeup done, and actually knows how to show up, do their job, get the shot, and walk off the set. And it should happen within the first like 10 shots. You should
Hmm.
have already gotten it, and they'll always do extra. But that's what's wild is I feel like we're from an age group
Yep.
at probably we're like the dying age
And,
group. Like
but the
all
thing
of
is, you guys ain't dying though, because as I
we,
said, I mean,
But
literally,
we're on the grind.
yeah,
literally in my office, I have a
but we
picture
really
of both.
are like that last like age group of
Yep.
models who are quite literally show up as real models. We're
Hmm.
tall, we're slender, we show up on time, we show up with our hair done, we show up with our makeup done, we will be there with our nails done, all of these things. And this younger generation of models really just doesn't.
Well, this is the thing, Amber. This is the thing.
Yeah,
You guys use the term in the sense as models, but as I've tried to explain to clients, I'm like, what you guys are brands, not
yeah,
model. Because as a model, you're looking for a job, you're hoping for a job, you're waiting for a job, you're praying for a job, you're wanting a job. But what you guys have done is that you've created a brand because people know you based on your name. Like,
right,
yes, your work is second to none, probably the best in the world, but it's the name that you guys have established, which you understand that when you show up to these sets, yes, you're part of the process,
right.
but it's not about you. It's about the companies that you're working for, and if you make sure that they're happy, then eventually the word spreads. But as you know, a lot of these girls, they come in, they think about themselves, they're focused in the sense, number one, of getting their Instagram photo out there. And it's just like, yo, like there's a lot bigger world than the Instagram
Oh yeah.
aspects. And for you guys who have been doing it for so long, what would you say, and I'll say this to both you, Caitlin, you can go first, is what would you say the difference is from when you started to now, and what would you say your biggest frustrations in the industry are in the sense of change now?
Differences in the industry, definitely. Companies are only looking for people with their following. The models have to have a following. You might be the best model in the world, but if you don't have a TikTok now, and brands are just looking for that, and I think that they should go back to, looking for a model who's professional, a brand, a girl with a brand who is marketable to their company instead of just following her following, because
Mm-hmm.
it may not translate. And I want to shout out Pop Brothers at Law. What's up, you guys? I see you joined. I think that's my biggest pet peeve is brands not really doing their due diligence to